Welcome everyone back down to Ice Level. As always, I am your host, James Blennau, and although we don't have a guest with us this week, we're definitely going to have an absolute crap load to talk about this weekend in college hockey. To get us started in the Ice Level Lowdown, it's the biggest news out of the sport this week. 2022 Atlantic Hockey Champions AIC will drop down to Division II at the end of this season. Players and staff were informed of the move on November 12th, leaving many to find a new home as the Yellow Jackets prepare to re-enter the level they began at. Despite their website still saying tickets are on sale for D1 hockey in the 2024-25 AHA season, the school returns its hockey program to its main athletics level, citing changes in the college sports landscape and budgetary reasons for the move. We here at Ice Level wish the best to the players and coaches looking for a new home across the game of hockey. To absolutely nobody's surprise, BC's Jacob Fowler was suspended for his incident at UConn on Friday night. Not only was he handed a 5 in a game misconduct, but also will be ineligible against Providence, looking to bounce back after their loss against UMass. Fowler had started throwing punches as things got physical between some UConn skaters and himself after a goal in the second period, and could be seen with the referees trying to separate himself from the other players. I will say though, the cherry on top of all this was Brass Bonanza playing in the background when the players created one of the worst looking mosh pits I've ever seen. On to some more positive news. It's time for our game of the week. This time it's out of ECAC hockey, and in an absolute thriller, number 17 Dartmouth took down number 6 Cornell in Hanover. One of our first Ivy League series of the season sure didn't disappoint, because after a scoreless first period, Dartmouth's Sean Chisholm came out flying with a power play goal just under 3 minutes into the second. Not to be outdone though, after taking a cross-checking call just about 3 minutes in, Cornell's Kyle Penny answered for the Big Red, and it was only getting started. Not to be outdone though, Dartmouth had their cake and ate it too, with Hayden Stavroff scoring on that power play, bringing the lead back to the home squad. In the third period, it was Cornell early again, with Kyle Penny scoring his second just over a minute past the start, tying it at 2. Halfway through, with pressure building, it's John Fusco making it 3-2 Dartmouth on a nasty one-timer from the blue line, but then Tyler Catalano would bring it back for Cornell with another answer just about 5 minutes remaining in the game. Not long after that though, the captain, Stephen Townley, proved why he wears the C and rifled a wild shot from the bumper, sending Thompson into a frenzy. It was truly an all-night revival for the Big Green as they went into the locker room with a little help from Rowan Clark's 26 saves on 29 shots, singing that Zach Bryan song all night long. Time for the upset uproar in a state of hockey showdown. Bemidji State returned to Sanford Center after dropping Game 1 to number 3 Minnesota and came out with a dominant 3-1 win over the Golden Gophers. The Beavers played a statement game with Kirkland Irie putting one past Liam Soulier just 21 seconds in, and the Beavers held on to this lead for quite a while. Halfway through the period, Irie scored his second, showing the dominance of the Bemidji offense through the early part of the game. And then in their best Jose Mourinho impression, they set the defense to park the bus, kept the Gophs off the board, not to mention Matthias Scholl's 37 saves on 38 shots total, and the Beavers' 19 total blocked. Minnesota found themselves on the board after a late goal from Matthew Wood with the net empty, but Kasper Magnuson brought the lead back to 2 on the empty net and sealed the signature win for Tom Serator's team. Now we're going to try something different this week for the cross-conference highlight hub. We're going to highlight the best game, barring those included in the last two segments, the game of the week and the upset uproar, and then head into the conference standings. So without further ado, which is usually one of my first Wordle guesses, let's try it out. In the AHA this week, Holy Cross and Niagara played a tight series up by the Falls at Dwyer Arena, with the first game even going to the shootout. Holy Cross jumped out to a quick 2-goal lead in the first, but Niagara cut it and jumped out to a 3-2 lead by the end of the third, and the Crusaders tied it in the third, with overtime not being enough to separate the two purple and white squads. Not only did Pierce Charleston put up 39 saves on 42 shots, but he stopped every shot in the shootout for the extra point and the Niagara win. Now let's check out some of the standings as of this week in the AHA. Niagara out up top with 19 points in conference, followed by Bentley not far behind at 18. Sacred Heart follows them with 16 and Army with 15. Their military rivals Air Force with 14, and a big drop-off coming to Canisius with 9 points. Holy Cross tied with them on 9 points. AIC with 7. RIT with a surprising 6 this far in the season. Mercyhurst and Robert Morris both tied with 5 to round out the bottom of the conference. In the Big Ten, Wisconsin had a massive bounce-back series at number 18 Penn State, winning the first game 5-4 in overtime and posting a 6th spot, winning the second 6-3. Cody Laskowski began his Badgers breakout with 2 goals across the series, and Anthony Kerr picked himself 3 apples in the trip to Pegula Ice Arena. Tommy Scarfoni had 56 saves on 62 shots against a dangerous Penn State offense as well. The Badgers' next Big Ten series comes on December 6th and 7th against the ever-stout Michigan State Spartans at the Madhouse. Now let's check out where the 7 teams land in this week's Big Ten standings. Michigan State leads us off with 12 points in 4 played, followed by Minnesota with 11 in 4 played. Wisconsin with 11 points in 8 games played, Michigan with 5 points in 2 games played, Ohio State with 5 and 4, Notre Dame with 3 and 6, and Penn State stuck at the bottom with 1 point and 4, and that about rounds out the Big Ten standings. Still in the Midwest out of the CCHA, a few shootouts dished some points to some unexpected teams this weekend. On Friday night, Bowling Green took on St. Thomas at the Anderson Arena, and after a 2-2 tight regulation and no scores in overtime, Jack Blake and Brody Waters took home the extra point in a 2-1 shootout win for the Falcons. On Saturday night, it's another shootout, this time with Northern Michigan at number 16 Minnesota State. This one was even tighter, with Will Hillman and Will Diamond scoring the only goals for either side, and it was Jakob Aldrichter scoring the only goal in the shootout, giving Northern Mich the extra point in upset fashion. Now, after a full weekend slate of games, let's see who's up and who's down in the CCHA standings. At the top, it's Michigan Tech with a perfect 4-0-0 and 12 points. Lake State not far behind them with 9 in the conference, and Minnesota State following them with 12 and 6 played. Bowling Green takes the 4 spot with 8 points in 4 games played. Augustana with 7 in 4, and Bemidji State with 8 and 6. Rounding us out, it's St. Thomas also with 8 and 6, Ferris State with 6 and 8 played, and Northern Michigan with 2 points in 6 conference games played. In my home conference of ECAC hockey, Brown had quite the weekend with a strange 2-game set against number 19 Quinnipiac and Princeton. The Bears took on the Bobcats on Friday night, losing by only 1 goal thanks to Elliot Gronewald's late-game winner. You'd think they might carry that momentum into Saturday against Ivy rivals Princeton, but it took a shootout for the Bears to beat the Tigers, winning the extra point after a 2-0 performance in the breakaways. Now, let's see how crazy things have gotten this weekend after a slate of ECAC competition. Dartmouth sits alone at the top with 13 points in 5 games played, followed by a surprise Union with 9 points in 4 games played. Colgate follows them with 8 points in 4 played, and Clarkson with 6 in 2. Harvard has 6 and 5 with Quinnipiac gaining 6 points in 4 games. Cornell also tied with the Bobcats 6 in 4 games. Princeton and Yale also with 5 points in 4 games. And to round us out, RPI with 3 points in 4 games, Brown with 2 in 4 games, and St. Lawrence, a completely winless 0-2-0 in the conference, no points so far. In the ever-chaotic Hockey East, we can't go through this weekend without mentioning UConn's incredible upset over powerhouse number 2 BC. In their only game of the weekend, and without Jacob Fowler for about the second half of the game, the Huskies took down the Eagles in a 5-4 barn burner. 5 different goal scorers kept the Huskies in it as they look to carry the momentum into their next series against Lowell on Friday and Saturday night. The standings are always tight in this conference, so let's see where the loss lands BC and everyone around them in the Hockey East. Providence leads the pack with 16 points in 8 played, followed by Maine with 15 in 8 played. UMass Lowell in 3rd with 12 points in 5 played, and UConn and Vermont tied for 4th with 10 points in 8 played. BU has 8 points in 5 played, while they are tied with Merrimack, who has 8 points in 6 played. BC with 6 points in 3 games played, UMass with 6 points in 6 games played, and Northeastern with 6 points in 6 games played, all tied for 8, and New Hampshire in the bottom spot with 5 points in 5 games played. And in the NCHC, Arizona State played their first ever NCHC home games this weekend against Omaha, kicking off a new era at Bullitt Arena. The Sun Devils dropped the first game against the Mavericks 4-2, but got their first conference home win on Saturday in a 3-2 finish thanks to David Heimovich's game winner in the early 3rd period. Number 1, Denver also swept one of the biggest series overall this year at number 9, North Dakota, winning 5-2 and 3-2 respectively, with Matt Davis putting on a show as always. Let's see how heavy the top really is in this week's NCHC standings. Western Michigan in the surprising top spot with 9 points in 4 games played, followed by Colorado College with 8 points in 4 games played. Denver follows them with 6 points in 2 games played, and Minnesota Duluth with 6 points in 4 games played, tied with North Dakota at the same record. St. Cloud State has 5 points in 2 games played. Arizona State has 4 in 4. Omaha with 3 in 4. And Miami with an unfortunate 1 in 4 games played. It's time for a throwback. Let's talk hockey history. On November 16th, 1990, 34 years ago from Friday, Boston College alumnus Brian Leetch picked up 5 assists in the New York Rangers' 6-4 win against the original Winnipeg Jets. That would tie the team's record for most assists by a defenseman in a game. Back in 2021, though, Harvard alum Adam Fox would tie that record with 5 of his own against the Flyers. Leetch finished his Rangers career with 741 assists and 38 assists in his only season at BC.
The Ice Level Podcast is sponsored by Best Damn Tape. Best Damn Tape's mission is to supply the most affordable and elite-level sports tape to athletes worldwide. You can go to bestdamntape.com and use code DanKShow40, that's DanKShow40, to get 40% off your order. Go to bestdamntape.com and order your clear tape, your black and white tape, scented stick wax, and more.
Most importantly, there were a ton of massive matchups for ranked teams this year, so let's see how the USCHO Poll shaped up. In first place with a perfect record and 50 first place votes, Denver, followed by Michigan State and Boston College at 2 and 3, with Minnesota and Maine rounding out the top 5. Michigan, Colorado College, Cornell, Western Michigan, and Providence round out the next of the top 10. St. Cloud State, North Dakota, BU, Ohio State, and Lowell make up the next from 10 to 15, and Dartmouth, Minnesota State, Quinnipiac, Clarkson, and UMass round out the top 20. But wait, before you go, we got a Forecheck Forecast. In Week 9 of college hockey, number 18 Quinnipiac goes to Ithaca to take on number 8 Cornell in a battle of the ECAC hockey's best teams. Number 11 St. Cloud State takes on Caden and Berico, and number 7 Colorado College in a 2-game series with the Tigers having home ice in both matchups. Red Hot UConn heads to Songus Center to play number 15 UMass Lowell, trying to keep their momentum and climb up the ever-changing Hockey East standings. The Border War kicks off for the season as number 5 Maine plays a standalone game at New Hampshire after going 2-3 in the series last year, with a massive win in the Hockey East Tournament quarterfinals at Alfond Arena. And finally, Harvard takes on in-state opponents number 20 UMass in Amherst as the Crimson look to take back their spot in the USCHO Poll that the Minutemen have holed up for this week. That's all for this week's Ice Level Weekend Review. Thanks so much for tuning in, and thanks also go out to USCHO and Hooked on Hockey magazine for providing today's information. As we all know by now, I'm not an expert, and neither are you, but we're going to grow this game together. I'll see you next week.